Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second episode of Marketing to Agents. And in our first episode, we did talk about some of the progress which is happening in this field, especially looking at what's happening from a marketer's point of view and what's happening from agents and dev side of view. And this week, what we're going to look at is some of the updated news coming from this space, a lot of new information. And of course, we'll go through that. And as always, I have Lalit with me. Lalit, again, who's been an amazing industry leader, understanding what's happening in the industry. And yes, it's great to have you again this week.
Absolutely, Ashwani. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to catch up on what are changing is in the ever dynamic world of answer engine optimization.
Perfect. Right, so let's get started for this week. So a lot of great news coming out this week in our space. Why don't you kick things off first?
Yeah, so some of the I would say the noteworthy developments that have happened is that Google has actually launched four native ad formats inside the AI mode, right? So that is something that we can dive deep into. Then I think the other noteworthy thing is that the the Google search profile that was launched, we did touch upon that in our last
Yep.
podcast as well, but that again is an important thing. The third is that a lot of publishers are actually very aggressively getting into AI content licensing with companies like OpenAI and Claude, etc. So licensing is actually becoming a very important thing. So these are, let's say, some
Hmm.
of the highlights that we can maybe dive deep on, and we can
Fantastic.
keep the
Yeah.
conversation, yeah, free flowing.
Fantastic, Lilith. Yep, that's sounds like an amazing docket to cover today. So let's dive into the first thing that you highlighted. So you're absolutely right. I think so. Google this week launched four new native ad formats, and just to quickly brief on what this piece is about, and then would love to go into deep dive and understand what's happening there. So, as we are all seeing that in Google now, because Google has those instant answers which are composed with AI, the clicks to actual links is significantly dropping, and therefore clicks to ads is also significantly dropping. So, this week, Google launched four new ad formats: conversational discovery ads, highlighted answers, AI shopping carts, and visual story ads. All of these live within the AI mode of Google. So, and that's was a big step in my opinion, because I think Google must be seeing some drop in their ad revenue, and they would have been figuring out how they would capture some of the search intents and ad revenue from there. So, Lal, from a marketer's perspective, what do you think? How does it become important for marketers to play into this new ad format which Google has just launched?
So I think it was very it's in a very important development, and I would say it is already late that Google had actually made this innovation, because it has been like quite a long time that marketers have been reporting that their return on ad spend is actually declining on Google, and overall a good percentage of the clicks are zero click, right? Good percentage of searches are zero click. So I think this is like a structural pivot point in the search advertising, and it is basically addressing this very important trend that people are resolving the intent of their query on the platform itself. They're not really willing to click as much as possible. They want to get the answer or get the resolution of the query within the same Google experience. So this was high time that Google had to innovate.
Lovely. Yeah. And let's just like again coming from a yeah, go ahead, let's sorry, I think
I'm actually getting an echo. So how do we resolve?
uh,
Let me change the microphone.
perfect, Lalit. Yep, I agree with you. Uh, just to add to what you also said, now because these answers will have uh, will have ads in it, so for advertisers, for brands, for marketers, it will need to again we will need to rewire how the bidding process works, how the creatives work, how the ad copy work. Because, of course, when Google launched search ads or display ads or all of the ad formats, every ad format had its own unique positioning or unique scoring, how you rate, how do you do well on those ads. So I think this will become an effort for the marketers to now start figuring out how does their ad get the maximum clicks within those AI answers as well. But again, great opportunity for, it's a new format, it's a new placement, so great opportunities for advertisers to get creative with it and explore this new ad format.
Yep. I think this paradigm of advertising on the internet will be particularly challenging because the user expectation from AI assistants per se is actually uh, very different from just discovering information, right?
True.
Because they're looking for answers, right? And they engage quite a lot with all these AI agents that the answer has to be a lot more, let's say, trust centric, right? You just cannot plainly insert a promoted content in the ad, in the answer in a very native way, right? So that would actually breach the trust. Just imagine someone looking for, let's say, a, a school, right? Someone is looking for a school for their kids, and they typically are looking for the best school possible, right? For their search query. And if the advertisement is not very clearly showcased as an advertisement, they might end up getting misled, and then they might end up wasting the time or making a decision which ideally they should not have made, right? So this will be slightly difficult because, as I said, consumers are having a different expectation. But when I looked at the creatives of the ads of these new ad formats, I think Google has tried to do a decent job in terms of at least demarcating those as ads. But to be quite honest, I think in the past few years, Google has been blurring the line between how an ad is shown, how sponsored content is shown in the search result as well as the organic content, right? What used to be, let's say, two links became three and now four, and today on the search engine rank page, I think it's many times, like even like veteran users or power users of Google also, they sort of mistake a sponsored link as like an organic link. So I think Google principally has been sort of deviating from their let's say stand of keeping the sponsored content strictly demarcated. This is going to be a tricky thing.
Agreed. And as you were talking about this, there was something which clicked in my mind, which is going back to the agents conversation that we had last week. So now, if it's my OpenClaw agent, which is personalized for my search, that goes on Google and that uses the Google search. And if there are links there, will if the my agent decides to click all of those links, so in a way it is the revenue for Google, probably it's a CPC click for them, but then I will, from my agent, I will just get probably a summary answer or maybe the best answer. So I think Google probably, or these ad formats might definitely drive more clicks and more revenues, because personalized agents will definitely probably use those links as well. But at the same time, the core premise of advertising, which is your product has to stand out, there has to be right product descriptions, competitive pricing, all of those things still remain valid, because when my personalized agent finally composes an answer for me, probably it'll not show an ad. It'll just look at all those ads and then give me the best option.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think that's a totally new dimension because agent as a new user, right? Ideally, it should not care about the ad ad link or the the organic link if it is just composing a shortlist for you. So yeah, there might be high possibility of, let's say, clicks which has, like, in some sense, clicks which actually do not result into purchase, or accidental clicks because of agents trying to do research, etc. So we'll see. We'll wait and watch how Google handles all of that.
oh yeah, yeah, be interesting to look at that. All right, moving on to our next item on the docket today. I think Google, there was some data published around Google search that there are 68% of Google searches in 2026, which resulted in zero clicks for to any of the links in the search. So search results are not really now taking traffic to searches which are coming up in the results, and people probably just get those instant answers or AI answers and reference them, and then they don't go further into the search anymore. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think we have been observing this trend, and this has now reached, I would say, to a level that it is, cannot be ignored. That is what is forcing Google to come up with this ad format innovations in the AI mode. And I think Perplexity also, ChatGPT also launched their ads, I think earlier this year, and they kept the ad format very subtle, right? It's a very small real estate that you get. Uh, the kind of ads that you have seen on the sidebar of blogs in the previous era, right? Or if you are using, let's say, SaaS applications which have a two column layout, on typically the narrower column on the left or the right, right? That real estate, it used to have a single image and a very limited real estate to get your copy out. I think ChatGPT has proposed that as their ad format. It's difficult to see like what would be the result. Like the jury is still out whether it is working or not. But I think back to the zero click experience. I think this is again pointing to the direction that people are expecting their agents to be an assistant, right? Where the skeuomorphism around AI and the human interaction is undeniable, right? People are, I myself, can't help but, when I notice myself typing thank you to an agent, or if I'm, let's say, working on any coding assistant or any other, let's say, AI agent, some of the skeuomorphic aspects are sort of inevitable, right? Because of the mental relationship that we have formed with our AI assistants, and that is what is resulting into zero clicks and trusting by default. Um, Many of these leading search engines, they have actually admitted that even even as late as, let's say, last month, right, like May of 2026, I think lower double digit percentage of, let's say, answers are incorrect, right? But I think humans, as we are, I think we are so fast at trusting, let's say, the technology, that people are, they are probably not really, considering that as a risk, and then just going by what the AI is giving them as an answer.
Completely agree with. And this also then means that the whole era around, which started probably in around 2004-5, till about now, I would say, or till at least about 2020, 2022, where it was, people were posting content, where there were people were writing blogs, and then AdSense was primary source of revenue for a lot of these information-based websites, right? There were hundreds of blogs written. There were websites with just information websites, and then those information websites were getting a lot of this Google traffic, and thereby AdSense revenue was their primary mode, right?
Yeah.
But now with the agents using that information and directly showing those answers or doing that research for them, there are no user visiting those websites anymore. Or of course, that's what this data is pointing to. So that means eventually a lot of this AdSense revenue will collapse. A lot of these blogs will probably find it hard to sustain or keep earning. I don't know, again, does is AdSense actually tracks if it's a bot visit on the page and thereby does not compensate those blogs for those visits? Maybe. I think there is already that sort of a demarcation set up already, because why would Google want to pay for bot visits to the publisher, right? So that, I think, is a radical change in that model which we had seen over the last 20 years, which was getting built over the last 20 years. That model will collapse and then something new will emerge probably.
Yeah, I think publisher business models are I would say very significantly threatened. Last 10 years, new new crop of publishers have already started to experiment and maybe successfully um, gotten and let's say set up subscription based revenues. And what we are also increasingly seeing is a lot of these publishers are getting into licensing agreements with likes of OpenAI, etc. So, for example, if there is a large publisher which is a review site for, let's say, museums, right? And when someone is searching for museums, so uh, as we just spoke, right, people would not click on the links and they would just want all the recommendation and kind of like the shortlist presented in the AI mode or the ChatGPT answer, right? So inevitably the publisher content would be utilized, right? It's I think it's only fair that the AI labs and AI companies are proactively going and getting these licensing deals. That way, at least the business model which used to fuel the internet or the let's say the creation of content on the internet, that is getting sort of substituted with, let's say, a licensing deal, which still continues to be a good incentive for humans to go do, let's say, investigative activities to come up with new information. World is dynamic, right? New things have to be captured in terms of, let's say, our written word, right? And that has to make it to the common man's knowledge through answers or AI interactions. So that cycle of information, I think, is now going to be significant through, let's say, publishing. But people are actually going, let's say, the Pareto route, where, let's say, 20% of the publishers are anyway getting 80% of the queries. So the labs are basically going after the top publishers. So what happens to the long tail of publishers, right? That is still quite open, right? Would each of these publishers rely significantly on YouTube for views and, let's say, content consumption, and then YouTube revenues, what they're going to, let's say, drive? There is also possibly a play where that many of these publishers can be rolled up into some sort of a like an entity where a combined licensing deal could be orchestrated, right? So we'll see all of those things. Yeah.
Perfect. Yep. In fact, that was what you said is absolutely right. That was one of the items also on our docket. So there are 91 public deals which have been confirmed now, where publishers are exclusively signing up licensing deals with these LLMs or these companies. So, for example, OpenAI leads with about 24 such deals where they will be sharing revenue with the publisher, or they will be licensing their content off. But something that I was thinking about is, remember, how does the open source get access to these then? Because although it is licensing, but would that mean that it will it will block crawling of their content? The publishers will block all their content to be crawled by any other agent. Would that how these licensing deals will work technically? Like, because then what does open source model which are becoming really popular, like whether it's DeepSeek or by Moonshot AI, all of these models, then do they not have this content at all, or how does that work then?
Yeah, I think so each deal would have its own nuances. Uh, if I remember correctly, I think Reddit has a non-exclusive licensing deal with OpenAI, and that is why Reddit content is very easily also cited in perplexity answers. Um, so it's, as I said, like, to each its own. So, but there might be incentives for the labs to go into exclusive contracts as well for let's say categories which are of a special nature, right? For example, it may not be a bad idea for, let's say, Claude to get into a, let's say, G2 review, let's say an exclusive contract with G2, right? Because Claude anyway has a very deep penetration in enterprise, and enterprise queries might also have a significant portion of vendor research, right? And G2 is a rich source of vendor reviews. So some of these partnerships can be of exclusive in nature, can be non-exclusive in nature. So that is what the lay of the land is today. But I think that's a great question around open source, right? Because there is no one entity which is owning open source, and I think the ecosystem is still very nascent, right? So we also see there are players like Parallel.ai and Exa, where they are basically powering the backend of search. DuckDuckGo is another one. Brave Search API is another.
Yeah.
Bing the Bing Web IQ, right? There are a bunch of these search engines exposed as an API. So if, let's say, a large portion of the web is still non-exclusively available to, let's say, other engines, right? I think the open source models can plug into any of these search pipes and then gets maybe surface the content, right? There were also conversations of players like Cloudflare, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Cloudflare actually championed something very novel, where uh, a publisher would be compensated for AI traffic in terms of some crypto tokens, right? So uh, that was actually a very novel concept, which would have kept, I think, the business model to make sense, and also the the exclusivity and the overall democratization, or the democratic nature of information on the internet, that would also have been preserved. So,
Yep.
but I haven't heard really too much activity on the initiative by Cloudflare, but that was definitely in the right direction.
Understood. And what are your thoughts then about preferential citation? So let's say, just building on top of the example that you took. So if Reddit, uh, ChatGPT has a licensing agreement with Reddit, now would that lead to preferential citations? Would you think that? Because if that is there, then is AI really like, is that really a search made for you, or is that the right answer for you? Because then if those licensing deals are getting preferential treatment within those LLMs, then that means it's not the true answer, it's only the answer from a subset, right? So is that even,
Yeah.
does that even make a logical response?
So I think what you're calling as preferential citation, I think the way to look at that would be a judgment on quality, right? So what these licensing deals indicate to is that these labs are going after, let's say, pockets of content which they deem of higher quality, because as we know, internet is full of a lot of, let's say, copy pasted, templated, and let's say repurposed content, right? So publishers which are putting genuine effort or nurturing a genuine community which is bringing out, let's say, insights of truly valuable information, right? And if the AI engines are, you know are basically behind the judgment of, let's say, assigning a right quality, let's say, if they're in their judgment, if a certain publisher is of high quality, right, then they are going ahead and doing that licensing agreement, so that the publisher actually ends up, let's say, not losing money or going out of business, and they're assigning high quality to that publisher itself is, in a way, in a way, assigning preference, right? So what you're saying is also not wrong, but the lens with which they are approaching this is that they have to take this call on behalf of the user, that what is high quality, what is not, right? So that's what is happening here.
Perfect. Sounds good. Sounds good, Lilith. And then I think we have one of another item that we did cover from new item that we got this time was around search profiles. I know we did cover it last time as well. So I think there has been no further progress on the search profile, right? Google search
Yeah, search profile
profiles.
has been, yeah. I think it's been a week that it has been announced,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think it's a great step in the right direction. They've also kept the quality benchmark quite high. That is not totally fair for high quality companies which are getting built from scratch, um, because they've kept the bar of 100,000 on social platforms, and if it is TikTok, then it has to be 300,000 followers. Right, so that is quite a high, let's say, bar for, let's say, new companies which are trying to create content and trying to, let's say, build their influence in emerging domains, right? Because emerging domains, these numbers are, let's say, difficult to attain, right? But let's see how things go. So, question to you, Ashwani. So, what are you observing as, let's say, impact of, search being, especially local searches, right? Let's say the the neighborhood that you are living in, how have local businesses adapted to the change in search behavior? Are they sort of restless in terms of fixing their discovery, or are they okay with it, or they are oblivious to it?
Actually, that's a great question. And uh, okay, I'll answer it in three ways right now. So the first is local businesses, extremely local businesses. For them, somehow things have not changed much because number one, local businesses cater to a very local audience. That local audience typically does not go on AI for requesting certain suggestions. They may for certain percentage of their queries, but most of the queries are answered usually by Google Maps. And Google Maps hasn't had a lot of impact yet from the LLMs. So if I'm searching for a bakery near me, cafe near me, or a laundry service near me, none of those searches yet are heavily AI driven today. Those are purely visual and spatial queries which happen on Google Maps. So what I have seen, and just to allude to that, what I have seen is a lot more businesses locally, which serve the local community, are focusing a lot more on their Google search, Google Maps listing, or Google listing, business listings, basically, getting more reviews there. I've Every place that I've gone to now is requesting me to add a review for them there. So somehow that has picked up because people are seeing that local commerce actually benefits a lot more from Google Maps, and that is relatively less impacted. Number one. Number two, now let's go one step higher, which is, let's say, at a more city level. Yes, here a lot of now businesses are focusing on getting into the search, and at least the top ones are, because if they have a unique proposition, the best cheesecake in town, the best burger in town, these searches are definitely happening on AI searches, and those are the ones, those are their brands which compete for that. They are definitely trying to get their positioning in those, and again, they do have their visual presences, virtual website presences, so they want those to be listed out or make it to specifically those directories and those listicles. uh, Typically businesses which are not purely local, and those are mostly online businesses, again, for them, if the clientele is searching slightly more broader searches, which is the best CA for this XYZ, those searches go to AI, and here local businesses don't have the budgets to actually win those searches, is what I think. And rank also does not, today at least the rankings are not highly local. So if I have to search for specifically my sub area in Richmond, this has, which is the best CA for doing taxes, let's say, those queries happen on AI, but then the results may not be the most relevant today. But eventually, yes, those will get a result, and there again, local listings play a great role in that. If there are, if there is a local marketplace, local listicle, if there is Google listings which has great reviews, that does feed into that local play as well. So that's what we are seeing, Lagil. But again, Google Maps has played a big role, or Google Business Listing has played a big role for any local based commerce.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, and also there is a lot of emphasis in general about on, let's say, a lot of unique content, right? So again, while we are on the local thread, local business thread, I think the richness of reviews, right? The rich data that have been collected over the years in reviews, right? Some of the queries, even on maps, could be about, let's say, a cafe near me which serves, let's say, Turkish coffee, right? So that is something that can be significantly powered through the reviews. So that is why maybe there is a focus on getting more and more reviews. I also wanted to touch upon the value of, let's say, conversational content, and especially in terms of bringing out unique insights about a business from, let's say, the people behind the business, and then bringing it out and making it available for answer engines to index, and get a clear picture about, let's say, a particular business strength or point of view. right? So what are we seeing, let's say, especially in B2B SaaS, right, or any B2B marketing scenario, or uh, that how much of let's say focus of the marketer is going on to, let's say, conversational content publishing and generating unique insights.
So, just from okay, speaking from our experience today, I think as the AI content grows and as the text content grows or anything written by AI or thought processed by I think the value for human based content or conversations or real interactions or real customer testimonials, all of that content's value goes significantly up. Significantly up. Uh, just to give you an example, this is a very crude analogy of the same. I was just thinking, so when industrial revolution happened, of course, there were clothes being made before that also. There were everything was being made before that also, but probably manually. And then when industrial revolution happens, machines started doing that. Now, what it did was the things which were still continued to be done manually became, of course, scarce, but became a lot more valuable. Whereas industrial revolution made everything much more easily available and lot more cheaper. So, so people who valued human craftsmanship, they actually paid a lot more for that. Versus, of course, the basic needs were now getting satisfied for a much lower price as well. So in my mind, I was just thinking that this would be a similar thing that would happen. Uh, a basic need or answers or what is required, all of that will be surfaced or all of that will be able to easily provided by probably just the AI generated content. But one-to-one interactions or conversations or real conversations with your customers, with thought leaders would be extremely valuable, will become extremely valuable because those perspectives will not come and people who value that will devote significant amount of time, resources to be able to get access to that. So I think it'll clear, and for a brand, I think getting, you know, investing in that would yield a long-term benefit is what we believe in today.
Absolutely. I think your analogy was absolutely bang on. The aspects of any job, right, where humans are putting an effort, uh, will certainly, and that results into, let's say, a little bit of a value add, right? Any value add which was done by human effort will be of let's say of premium value.
Yep.
Great. So one last question from my side, right? So so today, I think people are also drowning in a lot of information, right? So there is far too much information on any topic, right? And when, let's say, someone wants to consume information, there is, especially on, let's say, cutting edge topics, right, where you're not sure, like, or rather the authorities haven't been set yet, right? Uh, uh, what is your take on, uh, let's say, assigning quality to, let's say if you're searching for a YouTube, on YouTube, let's say if you're searching for agent architectures, right? So and you get, let's say, 40 videos. uh, so what is your criteria to judge that what video should you watch?
Got it. And I'm assuming like that all of these videos don't come with a prior authority. Like because if there is prior authority of number of followers or number of likes in the video, then probably I'll just go with those first. But I'm assuming that all of these 40 do not have that, and I will probably have to go through with some of them. So, if in the absence of any social proof on those videos, I would probably start with a couple of those videos, listen for first few minutes, and understand how clear and crisp is the video about the topic that I want to understand, and then I will continue learning because and this did happen in the whole AI era because AI is very new. So there were a lot of new creators who came on YouTube, and it was great to listen to different creators and different viewpoints. And now I have created a full list of separate like different creators who are now my go-to creators for AI topics that I want to research and understand on. So I think just now expanding that analogy across brands, I think the first and the foremost the whole thesis remains the same, which is deliver value. So, whatever the business or the brand is doing, delivering value will remain a timeless proposition. So, no matter what technology comes in, if you're delivering value, that's your starting point. Then, second is how and where you deliver that value. So, whether it's in the form of text, it's in the form of video, then are you running video ads? All of that is okay because you have to get to the customer as well eventually. But the thing is that if the video, if once people click on it and they don't see a value on it, then it's no point. Then there's no use at all of that content. So I think value first and then figure out, okay, how do you distribute that value or how do you reach that customer so that they can reach you is what
Right.
how I would think about this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I think what I have observed is that today it's not very difficult to maybe, even without subject matter authority, using AI engines, someone can come up with a script and let's say good visuals for producing the content. And I'm actually coming across a lot of shallow content on the internet, right?
Yep.
On let's say agent architectures, for example, right, which was a very recent thing that I did. I was the first 5 videos that I consumed were actually not uh, going deep into agent architectures, and neither were the creators any technical, right? They were probably creators who are looking at, let's say, trend analysis on YouTube searches, and then they probably are just riding the trend wave, right? Like if YouTube is recommending that agent architecture is getting searched, then probably just a day before they are firing up ChatGPT to come up with a presentation on that, and then just maybe taking people through that. So what I observed was that especially on cutting edge domains where the authority parameters are not set, views are a very, let's say, a misleading indicator, because today, like, see, quality is also very subjective, right? What could be quality for someone who is just starting up their career, and they hardly know anything about agent architectures. Quality for them could be very different from, let's say, quality for me, right? So uh, what I'm also, let's say, seeing is, at least my theory is that on YouTube and a lot of these content destinations, there will be a lot more, let's say, credentialing of the creators, right? It could be implicit credentialing as well, where the more they, especially with social profiles, etc., right, where they, Google can know more about a certain creator, right, by not just their YouTube presence, but let's say overall presence, because today Google may not even know like who this creator is in real life, right? So the more the platforms like YouTube know about a creator, and obviously as a viewer they know a lot more about me as well, I think the implicit match on what might be good quality for me would be better. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And completely agree, Lalit. And there is also YouTube itself has been going back and forth on how to treat that kind of content. Just that since we're talking about YouTube, so YouTube can easily understand when a content is just generated, AI generated content. And there have been a lot of instances where such channels either have been given very, very poor visibility, where YouTube clearly knows that these are just purely AI generated content, versus at times, if the engagement has been good on those AI generated contents, then YouTube also, of course, grows them. But by default, it starts much lesser visibility for this AI generated content. So, so yeah, again, going back to the similar thought that in this era of a lot of AI generated content, human generated content will definitely stand out probably. But yeah, I think YouTube probably will somehow tweak their algorithm also to value human content more, or at least more insightful content more, whichever way it comes out.
Yeah. And do you think YouTube, just because of YouTube, I think Gemini would have a Gemini slash AI mode on Google would have a unfair advantage in
Oh, it
terms of
does
AI
today
search?
also. Oh yes, 100%. And I again, I don't know if how Google wants to use it, but definitely there's no place like YouTube. Yep.
Yeah.
No library, no content like YouTube. Yep.
Yep. So I'll tell you something about one of my recent usage patterns. So very recently, I think in India, Chrome, I think Gemini and Chrome became available. It's not it's not it's been just a few weeks, right? So uh, earlier I used to go to Comet, Perplexity Comet for especially for consuming YouTube, because Perplexity Comet allowed me to create shortcuts. What shortcuts essentially are is basically a prompt which you can store it for later use. And I actually I have my own prompts for summarizing a YouTube video. Right, the standard summarization prompt tends to be very lossy. Right, so I had actually created my own summarization prompt which sort of slices the video into unique points and questions, and that is how I consume most of my content on YouTube. Now Perplexity actually just got rid of shortcuts altogether, and now they have skills around it, and it's not the same way that I can use it, right? So Google Chrome now has Gemini, and now they've introduced skills in Gemini. So I can now very easily, in fact copy pasted all of my shortcuts from Comet, and in fact added more as well. And then if I'm on YouTube, I just open the Ask Gemini tab on my Chrome, and then just pick that skill, and the entire YouTube content is of very high quality, because YouTube, like Gemini and YouTube, part of the same family, right? They have
Yeah.
access to transcripts which otherwise are not available, right? There's no direct API for getting access to the transcript, but I have observed that if I'm using Gemini on Chrome and then summarizing, let's say YouTube content, it's actually a lot more accurate than any other third-party service that does the transcription on, let's say, closed captions. So
Mhm.
that's again, it just points to the advantage that Google has, right? We anyway are all spending a lot of time on YouTube in terms of understanding and consuming content, and we are also leaving a lot of signals about like what we are pursuing, right, on YouTube. And that entire thing being part of one family or one ecosystem, I think that lends Google extremely, let's say, extreme superpowers in terms of winning
Yeah.
the AI search, continuing to winning the AI search.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yep. And that's a very, very interesting. I shall try that as well. I haven't tried it yet, but I will give it a try as well of using this workflow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Ashwani.
Very
Thank you.
cool. Well, thank you so much for all the insights here,
Thank
and
you. You too.
yep, and to our audience, feel free to drop in your questions, thoughts around what you are seeing agents are able to do. Of course, next week we'll come up with a new episode on all the things which have happened in this week. Perfect. All right, Lalit. Thank you. Stop.